The universe is a fascinating place, and one of the most fascinating things about it is how we all came about. So in this video, I'm going to talk to you about the life cycle of stars, which is a personal favourite topic of mine within astrophysics. So all stars that are out there in the universe start off life as these giant gas clouds known as stellar nebula. You may have seen them in famous space photos from the Hubble Space Telescope, so on and so forth. So how do these stellar nebula become stars? Well, when these gas clouds get big enough, and these gas clouds are mostly made of hydrogen with a little bit of helium, when they get big enough, they begin to collapse under their own mass, and certain points of the gas cloud get hot, and they start to, have an increased pressure, they increase in temperature, and when this gets severe enough, nuclear fusion starts. Now, nuclear fusion is the process where high-energy hydrogen particles begin to fuse into helium. So once nuclear fusion starts, but the young star is still enveloped in the cloud of gas from the stellar nebula, it's known as a protostar, and it will remain in this state until the entire gas cloud has been removed from the star's vicinity, either by absorption due to gravitational attraction, or the star's nuclear fusion energy output pushes the gas away. So once a star exits its protostar phase, it enters a period of its life known as the main sequence, and this can take over 90% of the entire star's life. So our Sun, for instance, is currently on its main sequence. During the main sequence, the star is mostly burning all of the hydrogen within its core and fusing it into helium. Not a lot actually else happens during the main sequence, which is why it's considered one of the most boring parts of the stellar evolution cycle. So at the end of the main sequence, a star will begin to run out of its hydrogen, and how long a star stays on the main sequence is dependent on how big the star is. So a larger star will burn through its fuel quicker. And you might think why this is, and it's because of a force called radiation pressure. So a larger star has more reactions going on to it because the increased gravity of the star forces the core of the star to push outwards with more reactions and more fusion in order for it to continue existing and not collapse in on itself. However, towards the end of the main sequence, when the hydrogen is running out, gravity starts to make an influence and the core is forced to burn the hydrogen more quickly. This results in a sudden expansion of the star into what is known as a red giant. This occurs in Sun-like stars and is the eventual fate of our Sun when it begins to run out of hydrogen. However, as a red giant, and due to this increased burning rate of the hydrogen in the core, the Sun and other Sun-like stars will eventually run out of fuel. When this happens, gravity completely takes over and the core of the star begins to shrink and collapse in on itself, and the outer layers are sent out into the stellar medium and they are just left to drift, and eventually they would form new clouds, new stellar nebula that can be used to form new stars. However, the core of the Sun, or the other Sun-like stars that are left as small white dwarfs, which are small bodies of helium that are glowing from the aftermath of the nuclear fusion. And over what is predicted to be hundreds of billions of years, these white dwarfs will eventually cool into cold, dead black dwarfs. For a star that's much larger than our Sun, for instance, one known as Betelgeuse, which is about 300 light years away, the same process will occur just on a shorter timescale, as in the star will begin to expand because of the increase in radiation pressure pushing the core outwards and the outer layers outwards. However, on larger stars such as Betelgeuse, this happens on a much larger scale and it becomes a red supergiant. So you may be wondering about heavier elements than hydrogen and helium, because obviously this universe is made up of other elements such as carbon, oxygen, and you may be wondering where they come from. So in all stars, including Sun-like stars and much greater size than our Sun, once the hydrogen's been exhausted and converted into helium, the helium then begins to fuse into much heavier elements. This occurs more readily in larger stars than Sun-like stars, but it still occurs in Sun-like stars. This process continues and more heavier elements are produced up until iron. And iron's a special case because the energy required to fuse it is too great for even the stars. When this occurs, the very large stars actually shed their outer layers explosively in the largest explosion in the known universe, which is known as a supernova. During a supernova, heavier elements, as in the ones that are even heavier than iron, are formed because of the extreme pressures and temperatures that occur inside a supernova. Supernovas are so massive that it's expected that when Betelgeuse finally explodes, it will be able to be seen during the daytime for at least a week, the scientists believe. So after a supernova, the outer layers again they've been exploded out and they form, more stellar nebulas, so on and so forth. Whereas the core, depending on how large it is, will continue to collapse in on itself. If it's large enough, it will form a black hole. And you may have heard about black holes. They are a star that is so big that it keeps collapsing in on itself to the extent that not even light can escape its gravitational pull. If it's not large enough to form a black hole, the collapsing core will collapse to a neutron star, which is a very small star, probably about the same size as Earth, or even smaller. And these emit a lot of gamma rays and neutrons and are incredibly dense.
Thank you for watching Gorilla Physics. Please do like, share and subscribe. That really helps me be more useful to more people. Also, please go ahead and check out Gorilla Chemistry and Gorilla Biology. You can expect the same sorts of things, past paper questions and videos to help you understand topics. Thanks once again for watching.